Welcome to Transcendent. I'm Joe and I'm the dad.
And I'm Raya and I'm the daughter.
The governor of Texas is concerned that people in Texas are dramatically overweight. He wants to make a law that they're not going to be able to serve ice cream with pie anymore. Really? Yes. And people were quite upset about that.
I imagine.
There's been people surrounding the Capitol and they've been chanting, "Remember the Alamode." We are honored to have Monica Skarban here. She was here last time on July 29th. And during that time, we discovered that she had spent her time in the military as a career military person, Air Force. Is that correct?
That is correct. I did do a full career in the Air Force.
And how many years were you there?
I was there actually 18 years. However, I have full benefits because it was during the time when President Clinton was actually restructuring the Air Force and all of the branches and wanted to reduce. So there was an opening for me to get out and to retire honorably at 18 years instead of 20.
Early retirement.
Early retirement.
Wonderful. So after that, did you then do nothing or did you have a second career?
I had a second career. I continued with nursing, went back to California, and I have lived and dreamed and done my passionate job in hyperbaric medicine.
How long did you practice nursing in the military? How many years were you actually a practicing nurse?
My entire time that I was
all 18 years.
Yes. I went in as a nurse, as a bachelor's nurse.
Did you have to do basic the same as everyone else would do, or how did that work coming in as a nurse?
Good question. As a medical person back in 1981, when I joined the Air Force, there was actually a school for medical officers, and I was coming in as an officer. So I went to a 2-week boot camp, if you will, for medical officers. A little different than OTS, which is Officer Training School, just a little bit different. We used to call it, we would sit in a big auditorium and we called it the Big Blue Bedroom because they would show all these Air Force films and all this history and stuff and people would fall asleep. So we just called it the Big Blue Bedroom. But the important thing that, unfortunately, what we found was we learned how to salute people, who would salute us, how to wear our uniforms, how to march appropriately, and how to respect the flag.
Military protocol.
Basic protocol, yes.
But it was short.
It was a short 2 weeks, and once we graduated, we went out and we were officers. So as a medical person, I was an officer after 2 weeks.
Now, the reason we actually ask you here is that, of course, in your previous podcast, you talked about being part of the LGBTQ community.
Correct, yes.
Could you tell us again where you would put yourself on that spectrum? How do you generally identify when the topic comes up?
I consider myself gay, but I'm actually bisexual, male or female. But my last experience was my most memorable, and that was with my wife prior to her dying. But that was in the last podcast. So this one, during my time in the military, I was actually straight, I thought, when I joined the military. And it wasn't until I was in the military for about a year that I met somebody that blew my socks off. And she happened to play on my softball team, where a lot of our gay members, our females are in the military. But I can't say that everyone is, because the shortstop on my team actually started dating my boyfriend at the time and took him away from me. And I was crushed, totally crushed. And then the second baseman recognized that and just took over, and I fell in love with her, I guess. So yeah, I would probably say, oh my gosh, what happened to me? But it was overwhelming, the experiences that I had for her at the time.
Was this then public? Did everyone in the military know?
Absolutely not. This was kept secret, and I had to keep this secret my entire career.
Why do you feel you had to keep it a secret? Because were you concerned about getting pushback from the people that you worked with, or were there rules?
Rules and regulations at the time. You couldn't be gay in the military. In fact, the Office of Special Investigation would go out and search out people, even those of us that played softball. We always would have to be very careful and stay in the closet, if you will, because we couldn't let people know that our sexual orientation. It just was not accepted in the military. Most of us felt that we had to do the best job we could. So the best of the best who got what we'd call STEP. There was a STEP program, which was people, the enlisted people would get an extra stripe for exceptional performance. So in order to get that, they had to be the best of the best. And what we found was most of the people that were gay or lesbian were the best of the best, but we had to keep quiet and we had to stay in the closet and we couldn't talk about who we were and who we loved. It just was unacceptable. We would be discharged dishonorably if we were found out.
Did that happen to any of the people that you know of?
Yes. Yes. Unfortunately, I did have some friends that were on our softball team that were dishonorably discharged.
And I imagine, was there kind of a community then of people that you all kind of knew and you knew? And I imagine, could you speak openly amongst that group then?
Usually it was my softball players, those of us that knew. And there was always a question we'd ask. If somebody wanted to get into our group that we didn't know or we didn't feel comfortable with, if they wanted to get involved, the first question one of us would ask them is, are they OSI? OSI is Office of Special Investigations. There were witch hunts, and there were ways that they would wiggle their way in, and then they'd get information from people. True witch hunts for us. And then we would be brought in for disciplinary and discharged. If we were all found guilty, we would be brought in and
were they
discharged.
required to tell you if they were OSI?
Yes, they were required to tell us openly if they were or were not.
And
so
did that happen?
We've never found somebody that were OSI. They were always people who really wanted to try and get into our group because they wanted to find a safe zone, because it was difficult to find the safe zones.
I see. And
it was hard. It was really hard.
What do you mean by hard? Tell me all about that.
Number one, there was always the fear of getting a dishonorable discharge. I personally worked hard for my career, and I never wanted to be dishonorably discharged. And just because of your sexual orientation, to be discharged, it just doesn't make sense. We've given our all. I was very active in combat. I was active in Persian Gulf. I did so many activities that were above and beyond what average nurses would do. I was always actively involved in our C4, which is Combat Casualty Care courses, always just out there on the front line to do things. And for the Air Force to stop and say, well, because of your sexual orientation, that's not acceptable in the military, so we're going to discharge you, and it'll be dishonorable, by the way. There are so many people out there that were released from the Air Force and other branches that were extremely solid people and did a great job for our military and for us. This is for us, for America. They stood their ground. They did the things they needed to do. Yet, because of that rule, they were discharged. And they were discharged without anything.
What year did you go in?
1981.
You went in 81, and what year did you get honorably discharged?
99.
So from 81 to 99, you were in. Did you notice any changes during that time? In 81, it was different than it was in 99. And is it different between 99 and now?
Yes. President Clinton did put in the don't ask, don't tell. And at first, we celebrated. But once we really heard what the don't ask, don't tell bottom line was, it was you could be in the military and be gay, lesbian, any of the above, but you couldn't love anyone actively. You had to be celibate.
Mm-hmm.
Just doesn't make sense.
So there were
Why?
no more witch hunts at that point,
Well,
but
there still
there
were
still
witch-
were.
because there were people that did have people they loved. So
Yeah.
they were acting out, if you will, on their feelings. And you couldn't do that according to the don't ask, don't tell rules.
so it wasn't really don't ask, don't tell.
Correct.
It wasn't when you leave the base, when you go away, you live your life. It was don't ask and don't let anybody know anything.
We
It
still
was
lived
be
in the closet.
completely-
Yep.
Yeah.
It wasn't until President Obama changed those rules for us. And I'm really happy he did, because it was at that time that they started to recognize the importance of people having and choosing the person they wanted to love and be with, and be able to be married, actually, with the benefits that the military gives to wives or spouses, husbands, wives, their spouse. So before my spouse died, she actually, after we got married, she actually had military medical. So she had all the benefits of a married spouse member. So things did change when President Obama came on board, but it didn't happen until after I retired out of the military. In 1999, when I retired, I was still, for all purposes, in the closet.
I see.
I had to be.
And even though you were not part of the military, for how long did you stay in the closet after you got out?
I kept my sexuality probably pretty personal for many years after I got out. And even today, sometimes I don't go out blatantly and share it with everybody.
Wow.
But I am now. So I am now. So it is kind of a personal choice.
And may I ask,
Yeah.
as someone that had been in the closet all that time, how did that feel to you? Would you talk a little bit about your experience being in the closet during that time?
Oh, heaviness, darkness, loneliness. I mean, staying in the closet, you were always afraid of who was going to break through or find something or take pictures. We would go out on our boats and we'd have wonderful vacations. All of our friends would be together and we'd go to places that weren't quite as public as everybody else would go. And we would have parties and we would do things and we had fun together because we felt safe. Well, as soon as I put my uniform on, I became a different person. I had to be a straight person doing what I need to do. But my job was always, in my opinion, I put out the best I could as a caring nurse could be and an officer of the Air Force. I maintained my official rules and my official duties as an officer, and I defended our country the best that I could in my role, and volunteering to go overseas, to do the Persian Gulf, to be in Saudi Arabia, and do the things I needed to do there. It was important. So
back to don't ask, don't tell.
yes.
Once that happened, were there people that still were dishonorably discharged?
Yes, there were. And that's when it became more apparent to all of us that don't ask, don't tell was not as good as we thought it was going to be to relieve some of the tension or some of that secrecy that we had. So we all stayed in the closet and we still didn't share with others. And we couldn't act on our own sexual beings. I mean, we just couldn't act on anything.
You managed to get together because of the softball team.
Yes.
Which was really kind of a cool thing that happened.
Yeah.
What about the guys? Did they have a softball team?
No, actually, no. I had a lot of male friends as well.
Yeah.
No, they were into the dance routines and they would go out to the discos back in the day.
Oh, discos, sure.
I mean, they would dance. They'd go to the clubs and they would do things at the club. So they were just a little bit different. The girls were always in the sports and the athletes and all of that sort of stuff. But the guys always found themselves doing more of the artsy, craftsy stuff. There were a lot of us that traveled in European Showcase, our entertainment group that traveled all over Europe.
Now, obviously in the 80s, there would have been a huge crossover with, during that time when I think about our community, that was the AIDS crisis.
Oh.
And in civilian society, I hear a lot of stories about the lesbian community really coming alongside the gay community and helping out. Did you see any of that, or was that really far removed from you in the military?
No, I saw a lot of my friends actually die from AIDS. From Germany, when I was in Germany, stationed there. It actually was kind of shocking because it was fresh and new, and the more it came out, because it was in the 80s, you're absolutely right. But I was mid 80s and I was in Germany, and some of my friends were actually had the Western blot test done and positive. They were all discharged, but they were all brought to the United States and cared for, and several of our close friends from Germany, when I knew them in Germany, died.
When these people were dishonorably discharged,
yes,
is that what it said on the record? They were dishonorably discharged because they were gay or lesbian?
Yes.
Well, the obvious question is, now that that's okay, can they go back and get that amended?
That's a really good question. And I think there are multiple people that are talking with lawyers today to see if they can get their benefits back and to get their honorable discharge replaced from their dishonorable discharge.
But you don't know what the status of that is at this point?
I personally don't.
I'm Chuck Reynolds, and I started listening to Transcendent because Joe is my friend. I keep listening because I have friends, colleagues, and family members who are part of the LGBTQ community, and I want to better understand their struggles and perspectives. I have become a supporter because I believe Joe and Raya are truly helping to preserve relationships and save lives. Join me in supporting Transcendent. Just go to transcendent.com, click on support, and select the amount you'd like to give each month. It can be as little as $3, and you can cancel at any time.
What about today? What's the military like today?
I'm not positive. I don't have any close friends, but I do know that they no longer hold that rule, that's been lifted. Knowing myself that I can be married now in the military and receive all the benefits, I believe that's all been lifted. So I'm hoping that the people that have been dishonorably discharged can now go back and fight to have an honorable discharge for themselves.
Well, I've always heard, because I was in the military myself, that the best branch, the one that was really the most comfortable and the best all around, was the Air Force. And in fact, when I went to Japan, we were so excited because we had Air Force bunks instead of Army bunks, which were smaller and that mattress wasn't as thick. But I wonder if there's a difference between all of these different services, how they are treating the LGBTQ community today. Do you think it's the same throughout between the Marines and the Coast Guard and the Space Force?
I would hope today that they're all treated equally. And the reason I say that is because today, most of our military members are merged into the same bases, and we all work together. When I was in Germany, it was everybody together. We had Army, Navy, Air Force, everybody working together. So knowing that that happens, there's got to be a same policy for all of us in that regard. And I would hope that there is no difference in that. I know there's submarines and I know there's women on ships now. So yes, I'm hoping that line has gone away and that people are treated equally as a group.
My takeaway from this, listening to what you have to say, I got out of the military in 1965, a long time ago. And it's heartwarming for me to realize that now, looking at 2024, how dramatically different things are and how much progress the LGBTQ community has made. In some areas, it's actually gone backwards. But that's really in very conservative types of churches and those kinds of things, it has really gotten worse. But overall, we have a reason to celebrate.
We do. It took until President Obama came on board, but I'm so happy that those rules got changed. I can tell you that most of my friends felt elated by the fact that these rules were changed and we were recognized as true human beings. I mean, we would bust our buns to be the best of the best. And truly, when you'd see all of these people, some, I have to say, Some of my best friends worked for Hillary Clinton after they retired, and they're still gay, and they're very solid at what they do, and they're on these high-end boards and things. These are people well respected in the community. People care. People care.
Yeah.
And these people should be recognized for what they do, not for who they are or who they go to bed with. It shouldn't matter. We should recognize who we are as individuals.
The analogy I always use is it's like being left-handed.
It's as normal as being left-handed.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes, I agree.
Yes. So until now, the only framework that I've had for understanding LGBTQ issues in the military would be from the L Word, which many people watch that TV show, especially in the lesbian community.
Yes.
If you have watched that, you remember Tasha Williams was on in seasons 4, 5, and 6. You've seen that show?
Yes.
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 So, and you remember that character. Was that pretty accurate for what you remember?
I would say yes. I would say absolutely. I mean, you got the people that stand up, that do all of the right things. And I got to say, there's some pretty nice looking people in flight suits. And I wear a flight suit and I love my flight suit. So there are some good looking people out there in flight suits in the Air Force. And some days you don't know who is and who isn't. So we still keep low key. We've got all the pilots that are out there, the female pilots that are running some of these planes all over the place. Don't know if they are or they're not. So you don't really know anymore unless they come out and say it. But people don't talk about it because it's not something that needs to be broadcast. Our job is to take care of the American people and our military best we can. So that's our primary job. So that's what we do. And as long as we can do that and maintain and be the strong providers that we are, I think go Air Force.
Would you be comfortable telling one of the stories of one of your friends that was dishonorably discharged? How that might have actually played out?
It actually was a military member that was in the Army that was in a barracks, and they were attracted to another person, and the other person happened to be an OSI investigator. They made a move on them, and unfortunately, it was not good. They were brought in. They had to testify, and it was that one word against the other, and they lost because the OSI agent had tapes and things. So they brought them in, and they were They were gone within like 2 weeks. So it's a quick thing. They were removed. Nobody really saw them. You couldn't see them, and they were gone.
What was the fear at that? Why was OSI so pushing it so much?
I don't have an answer for that. I do know that it was actually, it put all of us on a tightrope, if you will. Nobody knew who to trust. Nobody knew who they could talk to freely. So for a long time and for various periods of the year, when the hunts would happen, people would get out and let people know. We had a tight-knit family. So when you could find the tight-knit family, you stayed with them, and then you'd party with them, and that's it. You would just not get out into the community and do things with other people. So once you were stuck, you were stuck. And if you had a good partner, you were great. But unfortunately, in the Air Force, you transfer every 2 to 3 years. So a lot of partners just split up.
What advice would you have for someone who is considering going in the military now, who is LGBT or may think that they are?
I think it's a wonderful thing. If you feel that you have a duty for our country, I say volunteer. I think we've got less restrictions, and it's definitely not the same as it was in 1981 when I joined, or even in 99 when I retired. It is a more open community in the military now, and I think the community would be more accepting for people that are in the military and would not have to feel that negativity that we all felt for all those years. You don't have to feel buried. They can actually open up and be the person they want to be.
Monica, thank you so much for joining us again and for sharing your experiences.
You know, this isn't the first time you guys have invited me here, and I really appreciate being here with this program. You all need to be a part of this because this is amazing. It's informative, it's informational, and I'm so proud to be a part of your podcasts. Thank you again for inviting me.
Well, I want to say to both of you, thank you both for your service.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
It's very meaningful to me, and it's also meaningful because now my son has gone on, and he is right now in boot camp as we speak. We're hopeful that everything will go well, and we're looking forward to his graduation right before Thanksgiving. So it makes me feel very proud to have so many people that are close to me that have served.
And I'm looking forward to him coming back here to celebrate Thanksgiving with us. And we can hear a lot about his experiences to this date and how it's going to be for him as he goes on. And you'll want to know how it's going to be for you as we go on every week right here with our next podcast, which we do every Monday.
And with that, we'll see you Monday.
And by the way, what was your final rank?
I was a major in the Air Force. Major.
Major, yes. That's very honorable.
Thank you.